So let us talk a bit on some interesting thing. किसी को गाली देने का मौका मिल रहे तो US gun laws. So what is there, or the gun terror? What is the problem in US? They can get license, or easier than a driving license, and in many places they don't even require a license. Okay, they can carry gun freely and use here and there. Okay, many of those killings ultimately happen because many of them are very sophisticated and automatic weapons, and these weapons may go accidentally fire. It's not that they are firing to kill every time. Okay, many a times gun cleaning, accident fire ud gaya. Okay, so the killings are not because of that actual intentional firing. Most of the killings are unintentional. They did not want, but it went off, and automatic weapon, so massive killings. Okay, so in a country like India, one of the ways in which we get killed, or rather the population control we manage to do, is through our roads. Road accidents and deaths, and unimaginable number of deaths. I mean, even in a place like Delhi, every day on an average the death on roads is three deaths per day. Now if you are 1 year, you are talking about 365 days, and you are talking about more than 1,000 people die on Delhi roads, and most of them are either pedestrians or two-wheeler travelers. Okay, so here it is because of poor road conditions and our inability to even follow the basic rules, and we manage to kill our people. America mein roads are very good. Uparwalas find that they cannot take up people through roads, तो उनको गन दे दिया, बोला ये ले लो भाई, ओके, तुम इससे मार के हमारा कोटा पूरा करो. ओके, हमें तो तुमको बुलाना ही है, कोटा है. So this quota is filled by Americans through this foolish gun law, which has no justification whatsoever. And now these fellows, Americans, are now adamant on this gun law in the argument of their liberty. Okay, their argument is they are free to have weapon. We are wise men and women. We will use it seriously and objectively. हमें सिखाओ नहीं, हम पढ़े लिखे हैं type ना. So this has become an some sort of their adamancy and unnecessary then of course there is a gun lobby in US. They are also supporting because that is their main business. So they want to continue with their business and profit. American government, it is funded mainly by two lobbies. Any government, whether it is a democratic government or the Republican government, two major lobbies are there in US. One is the National Rifles Association, that is the gun lobby. Another is the oil lobby, the petrol. So that is why they even during Trump's time, or even before George Bush time, they even started saying that global warming is not because of burning of fossil fuels. Global warming is natural, upar wale ki kripa. It is nothing to do with man-made activities. Even though IPCC, the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change, which has more than 2,000 scientists involved in it, they have repeatedly said that the global warming right now which is going on is because of human intervention, man-made, anthropogenic. But Americans did not accept this. They, till recently, that is why they even walked out of Kyoto Protocol earlier, which they signed. Then when they walked out of this Paris Climate Accord, again their logic is the global warming is not because of man-made reasons. Why? Because the government is surviving because of the money and the contribution given by these oil companies and the gun companies. In India, if the government is surviving by AA, ठीक है, मैं नहीं बोलूँगा, नाम नहीं बोलूँगा. Okay, so AA, ये कौन है AA? मैं नहीं बोला, तुम बोला. एंटी नेशनल कहाँ है? वेयर इज दैट एंटी नेशनल? ओके, चुप के बोल रहे अदानी और अंबानी इतना बड़ा सपोर्टर्स ऑफ द नेशन, देश बढ़ रहे उनकी वजह से, तुम बोल रहे ये है. ठीक है, मैं नहीं बोला. ओके, सो एनीवे, सो दिस लॉबी, gun lobby and oil lobby, they are preventing many of the these progressive reforms from happening. So anyway, so the present context is almost every week we hear one or other gun violence in US, and बच्चा लोग स्कूल जा रहे, पॉकेट में एक गन भी लेके जा रहे. Okay, so and then the teacher homework दिया, बोला why you did not do the homework properly, तुरंत गन निकाल के बोला ज्यादा सवाल पूछेगा मेरे से. Okay, so luckily this gun law is not there in India. Otherwise even हमारे क्लास के बारे में सोचो, मैं बोला टाइम पे आओ, तुम क्या बोलता, मैं अभी दिखाता हूँ तुमको. Okay, so you would have done many other things, right? So this gun law, because of the free availability of guns, has created such a havoc in US that schools are the most dangerous place now. Anytime, any small issue also, maybe an fight between two groups of children or fight against the teacher. Teacher is harsh, so ठीक है, उनको सबक सिखाने के लिए गन लेके आ गया बेटा. Okay, so instead of tiffin box, they carry guns. Okay, and now Trump, बड़ा बाप है इसका, so he at that time when he was the president of the US, he said there is a solution. Teachers should be given automatic rifles. Okay, so that they can counter the violence. कैसे मजा आएगा, दो टीचर आया पेन लेके, नहीं पेन लेके, गन लेके इधर रखा. Okay, imagine AK-47 here, and if you ask a question, I take the AK-47 and shoot you down and say, bloody how dare you ask this question to me. Okay, so anyway, so that is how Americans go to that other extreme. So one thing is very clear, only because of skin color दिमाग नहीं आएगा. Okay, whites always believe that we call it the white man's burden. Have you heard of this term? What do you mean by this? That is, they think that they know the solution, they have the solution to every problem in this world. We are responsible, we will solve the problem. The browns and the blacks cannot solve the problem, so they don't have confidence in us. Now, by what they are doing right now, we know that only even if you are white, you have no brain or rather no common sense, and ultimately you are spoiling the whole show. Anyway, so that is what is going on. So yesterday, I mean 24th of June, the US Supreme Court gave a verdict saying that Americans have a right to carry firearms in public. Okay, Americans have a right to carry firearms in public, overturning a New York law restricting the carrying of concealed weapons in public. New York law restricting the carrying of concealed weapons in public. So there was a law in New York which said that there are restrictions in carrying the weapons in public, even a concealed weapons in public, but that has been overturned by the Supreme Court, saying that you have a fundamental right to carry weapon. Okay, मजा आ गया. In 2020 alone, in US, there were 25,000 deaths because of gun related incidents, homicides, almost 25,000 homicides. Okay, if 365 days, if you are dividing, almost 40-50 deaths per day. And 25, 100 है तो 36,500 होगा ना, 100 है तो. So this is almost 75 deaths. almost 75 deaths per day because of gun related incidents. I am not saying it is violence, but definitely accidental firing all put together 75. Okay. And if you look at compared to other developed countries, US has 6 times more gun homicides than Canada, 6 times more gun homicides than in Canada, 7 times than in Sweden, 16 times than in Germany, okay. And the only other country which is comparable to this US homicide is Switzerland. Okay, Switzerland is not comparable. In fact, as for the data, one second, let me just check that. In US, per million homicide or firearm related death, per million death in US is 29.7. 29.7 per million population. For every million, 29.7 death. And Switzerland, number 2, it is 7.7 per million. Okay, Germany is 1.9 per million. Germany 1.9 per million. Homicide. Low. So, but Switzerland's case is slightly different. In Switzerland, there it is compulsory military, you have to participate, or rather you have a military service for all able-bodied men and women. Okay, it is mandatory for them. Now, and then they are given once they complete their training or rather the military service, they are given one weapon free. बोले ये लेके जाओ, एक बंदूक ले जाओ. So उसमें मस्ती करते वक्त कुछ death हो रहे. Okay, so that is the only reason why Switzerland has a higher rate. Otherwise, all other European countries, they have strict gun laws and hardly any deaths, or other deaths are minimal, we can say. Okay, so this homicide based on guns or other because of gun is very high in US. And another point, very interesting point is, if you look at the percentage of private weapons, US, if you look at the total population of the world, US population is 4.43% of world population. What is India's contribution? How much is India's contribution? India's population, percentage of the global population, 17 to 18%. Okay, 17 to 18% is India, just for your information. US is 4.4, third largest populous country in the world. Okay, but if you look at the percentage of privately held firearms, it is 42% of the world. If you add up all the privately held firearms in the world, it is 42% of the world. Then another interesting figure is the number of guns per 100 people in US. Okay, suppose we are say 200 plus here. How many guns per 100 people in US? Any idea? Any imagination? Kitna hoga? Number of guns per people. See, US has 40 million people. And number of guns per 100, 88.8 guns per 100 people. Almost every बच्चा जो कल पैदा हुआ उसके नाम पे भी एक गन है. Can you imagine? Who cannot even hold the gun? There is one gun for almost every citizen of US. Okay. After US, the only other place you have such comparable numbers or even more than 50. The only place is Yemen. Yemen civil war is going on. Okay. So naturally they may have many guns. Okay. So Yemen has 54.8 guns per 100 people, not 1,000, 100 people. So you can imagine the number of, see, it's a hobby there. ना बोला कि you buy any gun, ठीक है जाओ खरीदो. See now in India, हम लोग बचपन में, हम लोग नहीं तुम लोग, okay, बचपन में क्या खेला? वीडियो गेम, है ना? वीडियो गेम में all these days कौन सा है? तुम लोग कौन सा खेला होगा? हाँ? पबजी अभी आया, उसके पहले जो खेला था जीटी, व्हाट इज दैट? हाँ, जीटीए. ओके, उसमें पूरा गन कचक 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 ना. सो नाउ आफ्टर डूइंग दिस दे विल गो टू द स्टोर नियर बाय. बच्चा लोग बोला कि तो ओरिजिनल खरीद, इससे क्या मजा है? ओरिजिनल में मजा है. सो दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम विद यूएस बिकॉज देयर इज नो एज लिमिट देयर, देयर इज नो लाइसेंस रिक्वायर्ड, नो हेल्थ चेकअप, ये मेंटली डिस्टर्ब्ड है नहीं है, कुछ नहीं. एंड you can just walk into a store asking like a pen, you can ask for a gun. Okay, that free it is in many states. So what we take pleasure in video game, they try to take pleasure in actual weapons in the end. Okay, which is counterproductive, and that is why there is no control. Okay, so this number of weapons too high. Then another finding by many studies have shown that any restriction on owning and purchasing guns can reduce the gun violence. So if you don't have gun, then how can you do violence with that? Okay, so in India many of us want to shoot somebody, but we control. Why? We have no gun. Okay, so we have full control. Why? Then otherwise still if you want to buy, you have to go to Munger. Okay, Munger is the headquarters of all illegal gun manufacturing in the country. Okay, but बिहार चलो, मुंगेर में पूरा स्वैग से स्वागत करेगा आपको. बोले क्या चाहिए आपको, जो बोलिए वो कर देंगे हम. Okay, so that is possible. We have illegal gun market also, but still it is limited, we can say. Okay, so now that is the situation. Now why in US this kind of a gun law? That is the question. That is because the Second Amendment Act of the American Constitution. Okay, the controversial law is because of the Second Amendment Act of the American Constitution. American War of Independence, when was it? 1774 to 76. And they got independence from Britain. Okay, and these states became independent, or the states, many small units were there, they all became independent. Then they sat together to frame a constitution. These independent states, they felt that being independent is good, but if we can come together, they can have certain other advantages. So these independent states sat together in Philadelphia, which is known as the Philadelphia Convention. They sat for many years. Finally, in 1789, American Constitution was signed, or rather they agreed upon. Okay, and within the first year, or rather of the implementation, in 1791 itself, within a few years or within the first 2 years itself, they amended the American Constitution. American Constitution is a very small constitution, not like Indian Constitution, which is bulky, thick, nothing. Very few articles are there. So within the first couple of years itself, I think the first 10 amendments were made. Okay, first 10 amendments were made, and this resulted in the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments are related to the fundamental rights of American citizens, which they call it as Bill of Rights. Okay, fundamental rights we call in India, but in US it is known as Bill of Rights. And so basically the Bill of Rights had to protect the liberties or individual liberty, the constitutional protection for individual liberty. Constitutional protection for individual liberties. Constitutional protection for individual liberties. And the second amendment, first 10 are related to fundamental rights, Bill of Rights, and in that the second amendment pertains to right of every citizen to bear arms and ammunition. Okay. In India we write, you have a right to food, a right to clothes. Wahan pe likhe you can have arms and ammunition. The second amendment talked about the right of every citizen. The right of every citizen to bear arms and ammunition. So, it is basically a sense of freedom, to provide the citizen a sense of freedom and to use for their own defense. Okay. In fact, what the second amendment also says, the second amendment says, a well-regulated militia is necessary for the security of a free state. Okay, right. So, anyway, so a well-regulated militia is necessary for the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. So, that is what is written in the second amendment. ये भी बीमारी है, जब मैं बोलूंगा वो लिखेगा नहीं, फिर बगल में देखेगा वो नहीं लिखी, इधर देखा वो भी नहीं लिखा, तो मैं भी नहीं लिखूंगा. ओके, हो गया काम. शी इज सो हैप्पी कि दोनों नहीं लिखा. So, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what I said. Anyway, so now what is the context of this? 1791 is not 2022. First of all, 2-3 things are very important. First of all, whatever arms we are talking at that time, that was not at all sophisticated. It's a bare minimum initial guns, okay, and it had very limited capacity, okay. So, the arms of 18th century में हमारे मुगल्स वगैरह चल रहे, हाँ, वो बड़ा imagine that kind of guns. I mean, what kind of gun it could have been there, very limited capacity. So, arms of 18th century were not sophisticated. So, first thing is, the arms are totally different. Today we have automatic rifles and so many magazines and in one go, how many bullets, and single bullet can kill so many people. So, these things were not there at that time. So, we have to see that point, number one. Number two is, This law was passed in US when US did not have its own army, because they just formed the country. The states decided to join the federation, to form the federation. Individual states had some army. A common national army was not there. Okay, so this law was made when there was no US army. Please remember, independent states decided to come together to form the federation. Independent states had army. The central government did not have an army at that time. They were in the process of making the army. Today, the US have one of the most powerful armies in the world. The security and safety of the people need not be left to the hands of the people. Okay. So, at that time, they did it because they did not have the army. Safety and security was a problem. Today, the US army is one of the most, or the most powerful. Why one of the most powerful army in the world. So they don't require any the fellow citizens to carry weapons to protect the US. That is number 2. Number 3 is, this was the time when the US expansionism into the into the backyards, or rather from the cities, migration was still going on. Migration still going on. The new migrants who are reaching the eastern shores, they were allowed to go to deeper inside the country and occupy places like into many of these farm areas, the prairies, into the plains, which are the prairies in US. They are asked to occupy land and cultivate. Okay, then they used to give slaves also. All these things were going on at that time. Slave trade was abolished, or slavery in US abolished only in 1860s. We are talking about 1791. So they were bringing more slaves, more slavery and activities. So during that time, another problem with the US, the people, the new migrants coming from Europe faced was that they had huge number of Red Indians, the Aboriginals in USA, in the plains. Well, they were still there. The Red Indian population was very high, and most of these communities were very hostile. They were very hostile to the newcomers. They used to fight. They used to attack. See, if you are going and occupying a land, okay, the newcomer from UK, a new migrant who reached the country, he is asked to go inside maybe some of those, say into Texas, for example. Unko bola, okay, you go and occupy say 100 square kilometers of area and start cultivation, or rather you occupy this space and do. But this is also the place of the nomadic herders and the original Aboriginal population, the original inhabitants of the US. So they used to fight. A very hostile fight used to be there. And for the protection from this fight, and because of this fight only, most of the Aboriginal population US got extinct today. There is hardly any Red Indians alive today. Why? Because they are all eliminated because of the fight between the Europeans and the local community at that time. So now these newcomers, like these new migrants, were given weapons also to fight these Red Indian population or the Aboriginal population, because of the conflict there used to have. Very violent conflict used to be there. So they wanted weapons. Okay, so that is the reason why this gun law was passed in the beginning, because they also wanted, this new government also wanted to protect these migrant population, those who are coming, these whites who are coming from Europe. They need protection from the Aboriginal population also, not only from outside. This was also a reason. So these weapons were provided to fight against them also, right? And but today, and also this revolutionary war was over at that time. This civil war, or rather the 1774 to 76 war, and in that also most of the population got involved. In fact, then the local militia and part-time civilian, local militia and part-time civilian soldiers, some of them Agniveer type. Okay, so the local Agniveers participated. So they demanded weapons. वो लगी we have participated in your war. हमें कुछ मजा लेने दो. So the people were quite keen to have weapons. I mean, even today, if somebody comes and tell you, if the officials come and say, I would like to give you a weapon, okay, AK-47 देना चाहता हूँ आपको, आप क्या बोलेगा? सर हमें नहीं चाहिए, हमें डर लगेगा. नहीं, रहने दो, अंदर रख लो. No, that will be our mindset. People are tempted to have some sophisticated weapon and all. So at that time, it was the reason. That was the reason why they were given. Okay, but today things have changed. Now what is happening today is, now this has been converted into some sort of a a basic fundamental right of Americans. Now they are associating this gun or rather the gun license or the right to hold weapons as part of a natural right. They are equating this gun right or the right to hold weapon to natural rights. Right to life, right to education, right to equality, okay, maybe right to religion. So these are all our fundamental basic natural rights. Unfortunately, now the American Supreme Court and the politicians are equating this gun right, the right to have firearms, to this natural right of right to life and all. See, right to life and right to have gun cannot be compared. It's like, right to property. See, in India, we had a fundamental right called right to property. But in 1978, we removed this as a fundamental right. It's only a constitutional right now. Why we removed? We removed it mainly because right to property is not a natural right. Because the rest of the fundamental rights are linked to the natural rights. We will come to that. In polity, we will be talking about this. So, but the reason for removing, so it should be treated like that. If you just de-link this gun rights from the natural rights, the problem is resolved. You can have a right, but it should not be equated with right to. Now, unfortunately, the Supreme Court and the political class there, and of course, because of the support of the gun lobby, they are equating this right to something very similar to the right to life. See, right to commit suicide, is it a right? Huh? Your life, you want to stop your life, can you do that? So many people argued that right to suicide should be equal to right to life, or rather it is under Article 21. Right to life is Article 21 in India. Many people said that there should be right to suicide also, or right to terminate our life also. But Supreme Court in India, we said, please don't equate right to life with right to suicide. Even if you have a right to die, it's fine, but it cannot be equated with Article 21. So same thing should have been there in US, but they unfortunately could not do that, mainly because of these gun lobbies and all. And in the process, what is happening is this uncontrolled deaths, accidental deaths, then of course this shooting, firing, all are going on. Okay. So, and a fourth point I would like to add here is, with three देख लो क्या क्या तीन बोला मैंने. Okay, so it is 18th century weapons are different from today's weapons. Number two, I said there was no US army at that time. That is when this law was there. And number three, this migrant population had to fight with the local aboriginal population also. So that is why they encouraged people having weapons. And you can also say that local militia, they all participated in the freedom struggle also. So that is also because the violent freedom struggle there at that time. And A fourth point here is this: when today most politicians, including the former President Barack Obama, he talked about some regulation. There should be, and most people in US are only saying that they are not saying weapons should be banned. They are only saying there should be some regulation. But this regulation or limiting the number of weapons or licensing the weapon is not affecting Second Amendment. See, Second Amendment is saying that your right to have weapon does not mean that you should have unregulated, uncontrolled right to have weapon. See, we have fundamental rights in India, but these fundamental rights are what? These are restricted rights. Reasonable restrictions can be there, and that reasonable restriction only is required in US. What is required in US is reasonable restrictions. And the last time a major attempt was made by President Obama in 2015 after a couple of school mass shooting, and he said that we should, and his main contention was that he did not say, he also, because even Barack Obama also did not have the courage to say that this Second Amendment should be changed. He also said Second Amendment is right, we have a right to have a weapon, but there should be some checks and balances in this. And the first point he insisted at that time was that there should be a background check system, a robust background check system. Meaning anybody walking into buying a gun, their background should be checked first, whether he has any criminal background or whatever be the history of that person should be checked first, then only license should be given. That is number one. Then also all this this check should be for all weapon sales, including through internet. See, अभी क्या है, रात को 12 बजे इंटरनेट में Amazon में ऑर्डर दे रहे टाइप गन ऑर्डर कर रहे उधर, ओके, Amazon में चिप्स ऑर्डर कर रहे, साइड में एक गन भी दे दो, ओके. So this is so including this check should be for all weapons, including internet sale, as well as even they have gun shows, like there is special melas, gun melas are there, and say that आ जाओ free में एक free, okay. अभी तो दिल्ली में चल रहा है कुछ एक चल रहा है, I don't know whether you know that. कुछ लोग ऐसे देख रहे जैसे हमें पता ही नहीं आप किसके बारे में बोल रहे हैं, ओके, कोई बात नहीं. So 1+1 है उधर भी, okay, but on guns, not on beer and whiskey, okay. So that's a problem there. So number 2. And number 3, Obama in 2015 he also said that there should be proper mental health condition checkup, mental health checkup, and the federal investment in mental health should increase, so that those who are mentally ill should be treated, so that they will not be using it unnecessarily and unwantedly. And it also talked about increasing the budget of the federal investigative agencies. If they have to increase the background check of people, you need more people, more manpower, more sophistication, more maybe computers, everything. So they said the budget for the federal investigative agencies also should be increased, so that you can have a better control. But unfortunately, the gun lobby, and as I said, the National Rifle Association, is so strong and so powerful, so effective, that the Congress, meaning parliament where this law is to be passed, they are not able to get the necessary majority. Okay, because many of these politicians are funded by this National Rifle Association, and their survival is depending upon the funding by these fellows, and they are not passing. See, but Americans have shown great courage in, say for example, their abortion laws. But now, yesterday, there's a judgment where that has been changed. I mean, we'll talk about that at some other time. Then they have shown great courage in 1950s and 60s in providing equal rights to the African Americans, equal rights to blacks or the African Americans. They have shown great courage to abolish slavery. Where constitutional amendment with 2/3 majority they could do. So it's not that they cannot do, but all we can say is it is high time for US, their politicians should understand the need for protecting the lives of the people. Now these guns, in the name of protecting the lives of the people, the gun licenses were given. Now these guns are a threat to the lives of the people now. So it's high time to the politicians to come together and amend the constitution. And right to bear arms should be accompanied with responsibilities. Okay. So there is lots to learn from US also for us, okay, in the constitution making, law making, our rights. See, many a times, they are, what is happening is they are blind on the present day realities. They don't want to accept the reality. They want to, kick the can down the road, thinking that one day automatically this problem will solve. See, this problem cannot be solved unless they confront it. In India, if guns are not a problem, we have a problem called communalism. We don't want to confront that. We are thinking that one day this will automatically resolve. So every political party wants to take advantage through this communal polarization, unfortunately, in our country right now. Anyway, so Americans are also facing a similar thing. See, in 2016, when Trump came to power, he has also talked many such, unacceptable things from an American society. He was also talking much similar to what many a times we are also talking in our country these days. And in fact, the famous term emerged in 2016 was post-truth era. We are living in a post-truth era. What do you mean? It was the most the used term in 2016, the trendiest term. Post-truth. What is post-truth? If you say we are living in post-truth, नहीं, ये तो तुम तो बहुत बड़ा अंग्रेजी का मीनिंग मुझे बता दिया. No. Post-truth is where there are many ways of explaining that. One is you tell a lie 100 times, that will become the truth. Okay. Another is tell a truth, but only the half truth you tell. Don't tell the full truth. Okay. In fact, what is required is, there should be only truth, the full truth, and when we say it has to be, the whole truth also should be said. Okay, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth. Kashmir Files. What is the problem with that movie? Half truth. And that is what the creation of our post-truth era. Truth, whole truth, and nothing but truth should be our philosophy. But unfortunately, we are living in an era where we talk about some truth, distorted truth, and half truths. And this is the norm, the new norm, not only in India, across the world. Anyway, so in US, it is high time for them to understand that it is, if you continue like this, many more lives will be lost and there cannot be any solution to the problem. Anyway, so that is about the gun laws, and now there is no plan, and even now the congressmen, especially the Republicans, are saying that any gun control law comes means they will oppose it tooth and nail. That's what they are still saying. So no immediate solution there, right?